Hi, seventh graders, and welcome to Lesson 77A on simple interest. Let's first talk about what is interest. There are two different kinds of interest. The first kind is if you borrow money. Let's say you borrow money from a relative or you borrow money from the bank. You usually have to pay back more than what you borrowed, and this extra money that you have to pay back is called interest. The other kind of interest is if you keep money in a bank account. When you keep money in a bank account, you will get more money for keeping it there. This little bit of extra money that the bank pays you for keeping your money in there is called interest. These are the two different types of interests that there are. Now, what is simple interest? How can I find interest using this simple interest formula? It looks like this. I equals P times R times T. The I represents the interest. And remember, interest is a little bit of extra money that you either pay or you earn. Go ahead and find this place in your notes and write down the simple interest formula. Now, in order to find that interest, you take P times R times T. So what is P, R, and T? Well, the P is the principal. That is your starting amount of money. The R represents the rate, your interest rate, and that's going to be given to you as a percent. And the T represents time. Time is always in years. If you multiply the principal times the interest rate times the time, you will find simple interest. We're going to be using this formula for the following examples. So be sure that you have it written down in your notes. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that now. Okay, here is our first example using this formula. Suppose that we want to put $2,000 into a savings account. Go ahead and write down $2,000 in the blank line. Nations Bank offers a 6% annual simple interest rate. They will pay you 6% annually to keep your $2,000 in their bank. If you were to choose Nations Bank, how much interest would you earn? We're going to be looking at the interest that we would earn if we were to keep $2,000 in this bank for 6 months, and then we're going to do it for 9 months. And what if we kept it in there for a year? And now what if we keep it in there for 5 years? We're going to try all of those. Okay, so let's begin by finding the interest if we keep it in the bank for 6 months. Now remember, the interest formula right over here, interest equals principal times rate times time. So to find the interest, that little bit of extra money that the bank is going to pay us, I want to take the principal, and remember, principal is our starting amount, and that's $2,000. And I want to multiply it by the interest rate. And the interest rate is going to be given to us as a percentage. But I want that percentage to be written as a decimal when I put it into the formula. So here's the decimal point. I'm going to go back it up, back it up. It goes right here now. Take off the percent sign, and that's 0.06. So I want to write it as a decimal, as a number. So I'm going to put right in here 0.06. And then I want to multiply that by the time. Okay, so time has to be in years. And this says right here, 6 months. So what fraction of a year is 6 months? We know there's 12 months in a year, so this would be half of a year. So I could just multiply it by 0.5 or the fraction 1/2. 0.5 is a little bit easier to type in the calculator. Now go ahead and type in 2,000 times 0.06 times 0.5. And let's see what the calculator tells us that you would earn for interest if you kept your money in there for 6 months. Do you see how the calculator tells you $60? Yeah, that's what you would earn for interest, $60. A pretty good amount of money in 6 months, right? For doing nothing but keeping $2,000 in the bank account. Now, balance. Balance is your total amount of money that you have in the account. So remember, you started with $2,000, but you earned $60 in interest. So we would have to add the two of them together. And so if I took the $2,000 and I added the $60, I would have a total of $2,060. That would be my balance in the account that I could take out, spend, do whatever I want. Okay, $2,060. Not bad for leaving it in there for 6 months. Okay, so let's figure out what would happen if I left it in the account for 9 months. So a little bit longer now. All right, let's try the formula again. Interest equals principal, that's your starting amount, $2,000, times the interest rate. Oop. And remember, that's 0.06. It's 6% as a decimal. And now I want to multiply it by the time. But 9 months is not quite a year. Remember, 12 months is a year. What fraction of a year is 9 months? Well, this is 9 months out of 12. So if I simplified this fraction, if I divided the top and bottom by 3, that would be 3/4 of a year. So I could put 3/4 in there if my calculator does fractions, or I could change 3/4 into a decimal. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. Maybe it's easier for you to do that. So we can just type in 0.75 because that's 3/4 of a year. Remember, time always has to be in years. So now in your calculator, type in 2,000 times 0.06 times 0.75, principal times rate times time. And let's find our interest. Does your calculator tell you $90? Yes, mine too. So do you see how, because we're leaving this money in the bank account for a little bit longer, 9 months now, we're going to earn a little bit more interest. So we earn $90 in interest. Now, what's our balance? What's our total amount of money that we have now? Remember, we started with 2,000, and now we're going to add on that extra money the bank pays us, and that's going to give us a total of $2,090. Not bad for doing absolutely nothing but keeping your money in the bank. Okay, let's try another amount here. Let's try if we were to keep our money in the bank for 1 year. Okay, interest equals principal. My numbers are looking kind of funny here. That was supposed to say 2. Okay, remember the interest rate has to be written as a number, not a percent. So that's 0.06 again. There's our interest rate, 6%. And we're going to multiply that by how long? Well, remember, the time is always in years. And so if this is 1 year, it would just be 1. I multiply by 1. So really all you have to do is type in 2,000 times 0.06 because when you multiply by 1, it doesn't change the value. Are you getting $120? Yes, absolutely. 120. Well, think about this. If when we kept it in there for 6 months, we earned $60. Well, a year is twice as long. So if we're keeping it in there for twice as long, we should earn twice as much money. That makes sense. It's $120. So remember, to find the balance, we take our starting amount, $2,000. Remember, that's what we put into Nations Bank. And we're going to add that little bit of extra money that they pay us, which is our interest, $120. So now we would have $2,120 after a year. So if you left it in there for a year, we could pull out $2,120. All right, one more. Let's see what happens when we leave our money in there in the bank for 5 years. We don't touch it for 5 years. So maybe we're planning on buying a car in 5 years, and we're going to take our money and leave it in there untouched for 5 years. Let's see what we have. So we get $2,000. Remember, we multiply that by the interest rate, and that's as a decimal, 0.06. And now the time, again, is in years, and this is 5 years, so we want to multiply it by 5. So when you do that, calculator, 2,000 times 0.06 times 5 should tell you that you would earn $600 in interest. Wow, you just make $600 for nothing, for free, right? Free money. Okay, so we've got $2,000 that we started with. Let's find our balance. Our balance is our total amount of money that we could pull out after 5 years. And we want to add the $600 that the bank paid us. And so now we would have a total of $2,600 at the end of 5 years. Super cool. Okay, this is how simple interest works. It's as simple as multiplying principal times rate times time to find your interest, that little bit of extra money that you get paid to keep your money in a bank account. All right, let's take a look at some examples together. Here is example number 1. You borrow, let's say you're borrowing $8,000 to buy a car. So you turn 16, you want to buy this car, it's $8,000. So you go to the bank and you ask to borrow money. Well, the bank is a simple interest bank, and the rate that they're going to charge you is 7.6%. And let's say that you want to borrow that money for 3.5 years. You want to pay it back in 3.5 years. Let's see if we can figure out how much interest we'll have to pay. How much extra money are we going to have to pay the bank to borrow $8,000? All right, we're going to use our simple interest formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. These are all being multiplied together. All right, principal, that's our starting amount. That's the $8,000. Okay, we want to multiply that by the rate, and then we want to multiply that by the time. So let's first look at rate. What's our interest rate? 7.6%. Do you remember what we have to do with that? Change it to a number, a decimal. So we're going to take the decimal point, back it up, fill that empty spot in with a 0. So this would be 0.076. That is our interest rate, 0.076. Okay, then we have to multiply that by the time. The time is always in years right here. So 3.5 years, that would just be simple 3.5. Okay, so get your calculator ready. $8,000 times 0.076 times 3.5. We're multiplying these together. This is going to tell us the interest, which is the little bit of extra money that we're going to have to pay the bank to borrow $8,000. So when you multiply this together, you're going to get $2,128. Now that sounds like a lot. Yeah, well, the bank's not just going to give you $8,000. You're going to have to pay to borrow that. So this is your interest. This is the interest that you're going to have to pay. Okay, so we found interest. Now, what's more important is the total amount of money that you end up paying the bank back. Let's switch colors for this. Okay, what's the total amount? What's the balance that you're going to have to pay for the car loan? How do you think we're going to find that? Well, we borrowed $8,000 from the bank, right? Right? So don't you think we're going to have to pay that back? Yep, we're going to have to pay that back. But we're also going to have to pay the interest, the extra money that the bank is going to charge us for borrowing the $8,000. So we have to also add on the $2,128. So we have to take the $8,000 that we borrow plus the interest that we have to pay. What is that car really going to cost us? When we add these two together, we get $10,128. That's actually what the car is going to cost us. That's the balance that we're going to owe at the end of the 3.5 years. Not bad. Example number 2. Steve has $4,250. That's what you fill in your blank line in a savings account that earns 9.25% simple interest annually. That is a really high interest rate. Wow. Okay, what is the balance that he will have in his account after 12 months? Okay, the balance is asking us the total amount of money that he's going to have. That total amount after we earn interest. So we're going to have to first figure out how much interest is Steve going to earn by keeping that money in the savings account. So let's use the simple interest formula. Interest equals principal, which is $4,250. That's our starting amount. Okay. We want to multiply that by the rate and multiply that by the time. Our rate is given as a percent, but we want to change it to a decimal. So back it up, fill in the 0, take off the percent sign. So this is going to be 0.0925. And then we want to multiply it by the time. And remember, the time is always in years. This says 12 months. 12 months is exactly 1 year. So I put it in as 1. Now with the calculator, let's go ahead and multiply and figure out how much interest that Steve is going to make after 1 year. Now, the calculator is going to tell you 393.125. But we know money only goes out to the hundredths place, right here and right here. So I have to look at the digit next to the 2. It's a 5. Because it's 5 or bigger, it's going to bump this up 1 number. So this isn't going to be 12 cents, it's going to be 13 cents. So we're going to round up to 13 cents. This is the interest, put a little dollar sign there, that Steve's going to earn after 1 year, $393 just for keeping his money in that account. Now, this isn't our final answer because remember, we're being asked for the balance. What's the total that Steve is going to have? So what are we going to have to do in order to figure out the total? Yep, you are right. We're going to have to add them together. Remember, he put this amount of money, $4,250, into the bank account, and the interest that he earns is this extra money right here. We're going to have to add these two together. Okay, so we have $4,250 plus the extra interest that he earned. Be sure that you're typing 393.13 in the calculator. So you have to clear your calculator, add those two together. The total balance that he's going to have in his account after 1 year would be $4,643.13. Oops. There we go. That's our total amount of money. This is the balance. So we can say balance equals. That's what he's going to end up having. So he started with 4,250 and now ends up with 4,643 after he made some interest. Very good, Steve. You did well. Okay, next example, number 3. Here we have Scott. Scott has $1,500 in a savings account that earned $90 in simple interest after 18 months. What was the interest rate? This is asking a different question. Here we're being asked for the interest rate. So we are being asked for the R. We're not solving for interest this time. We're being asked for something different. Okay, so we can do this. We're going to use the formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So I'm going to first begin by starting out to write that formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time, because I'm not just finding interest. Then what I'll do is I'll fill in each amount that I know. So I do know the interest. It says that he earned $90 in simple interest after keeping the money in there for 18 months. So he earned that extra money is $90. Okay. Do we know the principal? Yeah, we know the amount that he started with. That's $1,500. $1,500. Okay. Now we don't know the rate. That's what we're being asked. What is the interest rate? So this is what we don't know. So I'm just going to leave this as the letter R. That's what we're going to try and find. And then we have the time. The time is 18 months. But remember, time has to be in years. So if we have 18 months, we know that 12 months is a year. And this is a total of 18, right? So if we take a year and then half of a year, we get 18 months. So we really have 1.5 years. A year and a half is 18 months. So the time is going to be 1.5. I could put that in parentheses as well. 1.5. Okay, we are trying to find rate. Now, I could guess and check. I could multiply by a whole bunch of different rates, but that would kind of take a long time. So we can solve an equation, being that we have one unknown variable, we could solve an equation in order to figure out the rate. Let's try doing that. Over here, I've got 1500 and I've got 1.5. Those are both numbers. And being that we're multiplying everything over here, let's multiply both of these numbers to make one number. We can simplify here. Let's type in our calculator 1500 times 1.5. Does your calculator give you 2250, right? 2250. Now let's pull down the R, the missing R. Okay, and then we're going to write down the equals and the 90. Now we have one variable, R, and we're multiplying it by 22 or 2,250. Now, how are we going to get the R by itself? What would we have to do to undo the 2,250? You're right, division. Let's divide by 2,250. We know when we divide, we get one R. We get our R. So we're going to bring down our R. Oop, there we go. There's R. And the same thing on the other side, we want to divide by 2,250. And when we take 90 divided by 2,250, the calculator will tell you 0.04 equals your rate. Now remember, the interest rate is a percentage. So now we have to take this number and we have to change it into a percent. How do you do that? Well, move it, add the percent sign. So this would be 4% interest rate. Scott must have had a 4% interest rate in order to get $90 after a year and a half. And we found that by solving an equation using the simple interest formula. Let's try another one that's similar to that. This one's with Pam. Pam puts $1,800 into an account with 10% simple interest. How long does it take for her to make $45? Okay, here we're being asked, how long does it take her? So that's asking us for the time, not interest, but the time. So let's begin by writing out the simple interest formula. We've got interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, let's fill in what we know. Switch colors here. Doesn't want to switch colors. There we go. Okay, blue. All right, so we know that she made $45 of interest. So interest that she made, that little extra money, is 45. Do we know the principal? The starting amount? Yes. She put $1,800 into an account. So 1,800. Do we know the rate? Yes. Remember, interest rate's a percent, and that's 10%, but remember, it has to go in there as a number. So decimal point, we're going to go back it up, take off the percent, so 0.10, 0.1 or 0.10, still the same thing. And then we want to multiply that by the time. But remember, we don't know the time. We're being asked how long. So this is just going to be T for time. We don't know what the time is. Okay, so now we have an equation that we can solve because we have one unknown variable. So take a look over at the right with the T. Do you see the 1,800 and the 0.10? Let's multiply those two together to make one number. So let's take the 1,800 times 0.10 in the calculator, and when you do that, you'll get 180. And then we can bring down the T. Oh, I don't know what that is. T. You don't need parentheses. It doesn't matter. And we got 45 over here. Now to get the T by itself, remember it's being multiplied, so we undo that with divide. Divide by 180. Remember, 180 divided by 180 is 1, and we get the 1T. Time equals. And now if I divide this side over here by 180, calculator, type in 45 divided by 180, and you will get 0.25. Okay, let's make sense of this answer. Time is always in years. And this says 0.25, 25 hundredths. That's not quite a year. That's 25 hundredths of a year. So If I write this as I read it, 25 hundredths, that would simplify to 1/4. So we have 1/4 of a year. Okay, let's make sense of that even more. How many months is that? Well, 12 months in a year. What's 1/4 of a year? So if I take the 12 months and divide it by 4, that would be 3 months. 3 months is 1/4 of a year. So I could either say 1/4 of a year, or I could say 3 months, but not quite a year. That would be the time. That's how long Pam put the $1,800 into the account in order to make $45 interest. So using the simple interest formula to find something other than interest is just like solving an equation. All right, we took you through the 4 examples. Let's go down to our summary. I put back up the interest formula so that you can see it again here, but we have some important words that we need to know what they are. And so in your summary, interest, remember interest is the extra money that you earn or that you pay, depending on if you're, depending on if you're borrowing money, or if you are saving money. It's just that extra money. Principal is that starting amount of money. Remember, we always want to change interest rate from a percent to a decimal, and time is always in years. If you need to pause the video so that you can write down your summary, go ahead and do that now. Thank you so much for joining me for lesson 7.7a.